So ballistic gel simulates human tissue.
This looks harmless. It looks like a water pistol that my nieces would run around with.
So firing in 3,
But it is
2,
a real gun.
1.
So it's gone completely through.
The gun you just saw being fired is known as the FGC-9. It isn't sold by a company or a shop. It is made from downloadable files, a couple of hardware store parts, and a 3D printer. In fact, it was deliberately designed so that you don't need regulated gun parts. And the name itself is a provocation from its designer. FGC stands for gun control. The design was posted online in 2020 in an almost 200-page document. What it creates is a semi-automatic weapon, which means that it reloads itself after every shot. In Australia, weapons like that were heavily restricted after the Port Arthur massacre.
On the island of Tasmania, the worst massacre in Australian history is finally over.
And they're basically prohibited outside of military or police use.
At least 34 people were killed and 4 others critically wounded.
The penalty for making your own gun varies by state, territory, and also by the type of weapon, but in some cases, it can be up to 20 years in prison. You might have seen that police reported that the Airbnb used by the alleged Bondi attackers had a 3D printed part for a shotgun speed loader.
In New York, in 2024, Luigi Mangione allegedly used a 3D printed gun to kill the United Healthcare CEO.
He was in possession of a ghost gun that had the capability of firing a 9mm round.
Weapons like this are often called ghost guns because they're made off market, there are no serial numbers, and they're designed to be hard to trace. That's why this isn't a niche tech story, it's a policing story. So in Australia, where our gun laws are tight, I wanted to find out, what is a 3D printed gun market like here? And what happens when the weapon is designed to get around our strict laws? Late last year, hundreds of illegal firearms and gun parts were seized in a joint operation.
Police, search warrant, open the door!
A significant number of those were privately made, and some of them were even printed in people's homes. Researcher Ruben Duss has spent 4 years tracking 3D printed gun seizures worldwide. He says the numbers have been rising since 2020, and he's identified Australia as a hotspot.
Currently, North America, Western Europe, Myanmar, Brazil, and the other area would be Australia and New Zealand.
According to his data, Australia has had 392 reported incidents since 2013.
This includes guns seized, discovered, or tied to attempted or actual crimes.
And that figure likely underestimates the true scale. New South Wales Police said that there is a growing interest in privately made weapons, and they showed me some of the things that they've seized.
So here we have our forensics area. It's highly restricted. More than 10 years ago, we've got something called the Liberator. It was 3D printed. It was single shot. It looks almost toy-like. It's pretty crude, lethal, deadly. But as we progress, you can see that the tone of the weapon, it becomes more military grade. They have been recovered in staged vehicles that are used in public place shootings, murders. Look, the motivations of the person making a firearm, those that have the criminal intent to manufacture and sell. There are those with other ideals and motivations. Regardless of their motivation, they are all criminal.
Police say they've also found members of fringe groups like sovereign citizens and preppers with 3D printed guns.
It used to be quite expensive to buy a 3D printer. Now it's not so. Really, we're seeing a market and a technology change that is enabling a lower threshold for people to be inclined to do something like this.
Illicit firearms are sort of crime type agnostic. We're concerned about organised crime, extremism, domestic violence. This is a democratised technology. That means that individuals anywhere in the world in principle can design these and release them.
The people behind these designs are often anonymous, but some, like American Cody Wilson,
Cody, you're only 25 years old. You're already one of the most dangerous people in the world, apparently.
say that people deserve greater access to guns, and this is a way to get it.
I understand why people might be terrified. If you were to have one in your home and you had the gun file, you could just click print and have the gun.
Early this year, another designer was asked on a podcast about extremists using his design, and this was his response.
I mean, I don't support them, but like if they build a gun, I can't do anything about that. If you are upset about a white supremacist building a Urutau, you can build one yourself to counter him.
So I'll take that as an answer. You've always been okay with it.
So who is actually looking at gun blueprints online? A new survey offers some clues.
We surveyed nearly 10,000 online Australian adults. People were much more likely to have seen these products on the public web. I would have assumed that people were looking for them on the darknet.
And the survey found that a particular profile emerged.
So they're younger, male, well-educated, employed, higher income, and spend longer online, and particularly concerningly more likely to have a violent criminal history. They were accessing fringe and radical content they were more likely to intentionally access, so not stumble across it, they were intentionally seeking it out. It was advocating violence either by or against particular cultural or ideological groups. And we know that type of content is linked to radicalisation.
Most jurisdictions have now made it illegal to possess the blueprints themselves, with the ACT promising to crack down in the wake of the Bondi attack.
Rubin says the answer can't just be tougher laws though, and probably relies on better coordination between intelligence, border force, police, and even postal systems. Because when parts are trafficked separately and they're made of plastic, they can look really benign and can be hard to spot.
I think it's a double-edged sword, because, if we clamp down hard, criminal actors, are going to go more underground, develop more innovative ways to circumvent regulations.
People like to call them ghost guns, but how untraceable are they?
I think it's a misconception to assume that there's a high level of anonymity. If you think about any kind of activity that you undertake generates traces of that activity, all of the experts in this building are really centred on exploiting that.
I could be sitting in my basement and printing a firearm without any exposure to the outside world. The investigations depended on mistakes that these individuals made in terms of their exposure.
Several US states are looking into software that would let 3D printers detect and block these designs from being made in the first place. If you're picturing Australia being flooded with 3D printed guns, that is not what intelligence says.
Globally, conventional firearms are the bigger threat.
The vast majority of illicit firearms in this country, which is about 200,000 or so, are actually just trafficked or stolen from the legal market.
It's the counterfeit firearms, it's the blank firing firearms, the converted firearms that are the bigger issue.